2020. Oh boy, what a shit show. I dare say this year will go down in history as one of the worst of this century. I hope it is, otherwise the next 80 years are gonna suck. But hey, at least that means we got to listen to some great music, and these are the very best that I've heard of this year. The rules are pretty much the same as last year, one song per artist, and I must have heard the song for the first time this year. Well, actually, it's since I started on last year's script, which only changes one song, but hey, it's my list, I do what I want, fuck off. So let's get this thing started with song number 10, Monolith Part 1, As Above, by Adam. As I said in my Adam review, I am a sucker for effortless power, and god is this rolling ominousness powerful. The opening monologue and that awesome effect on the snare give a sense of composed imminence before the song opens up with distorted guitar to let you know that the main song has begun. But then it makes you wait by dropping off again to give space for the lyrics to breathe. And that's the key to this song, the spaciousness afforded by that massive gap between the bass and snare drum hits. It's so easy to overuse the snare, and I've heard so many songs that are held back by unimaginative snare work. So when a song makes such a classy use of it, I instantly fall in love. So please, be sparing with the snare. A spare snare is a rare snare, and a rare snare is... I don't know. I didn't finish the rhyme. That aside, Adam have a great sense of the importance of ambience. It cannot be overstated how much those delicate synths matter for the song's progression towards chaos. The final touch of brilliance this song has to offer is that subtle use of distortion on the vocals that culminates into that one last unintelligible scream that draws the song to a sudden close. But going back to that snare, that snare. Next up is a song that also uses slow, precise drumming to create space, only this time it's filled not with cold freedom, but with crushing weight. Number 9, Moon Over Sabaoth, by Draconian. I've been listening to a great deal of gothic doom metal this year, and with Draconian's Under a Godless Veil being the crowning jewel of that exploration. Choosing between Sleepwalkers and Moon Over Sabaoth was not easy, and I'm still not sure which I prefer, so much so that when I started writing this script it was Sleepwalkers that I was talking about. But the deciding factor in the end was Moon Over Sabaoth's raw power. This song kicks ass. There's so much premeditated strength here. I adore any harsh, clean vocal combo, but Draconian is on another level. This chorus has some of the best harmonising I've ever heard, and then there's that wonderful guitar work, at times gentle, at others brutal, giving an impending sense of doom. Something that doom metal does better than any other genre, with Moon Over Sabaoth being one of the very best examples of that. Although I never would have heard this song without a certain other band that I will talk about later. For now though, the only band to make this year's top 10 that also made last year's top 10. Number 8, Flicker by Catatonia. While Catatonia may have slipped one spot from last year's list, don't believe that my love for them has in any way diminished. Oh no. Catatonia were my most listened to band on Spotify this past year, and with good reason. They've achieved a level of consistent quality the likes of which can be challenged by maybe 2 bands, which of course means it's very hard to choose which song was right for the list. I was going to review City Bells when it came out, but I'm actually very glad I didn't. My opinions have changed on almost everything about the album. I now believe it's the best Catatonia album they've ever made, and I considered every song for this list. I very nearly went for Lacquer for its originality, but I can't overlook how good Flicker is, with its spooky keyboards and brilliant drums. However, it's the bass that I find that is the core of not only this song's greatness, but to Catatonia as a whole. At most times understated, but with a demonic twang allowing for a constant feeling of discontent, marrying wonderfully with the chaotic guitar and clear vocals, which I must say are a step up from the already stunning heights found on Fall of Hearts. Jonas Rankset has become probably my favourite male vocalist this past year. He's just stunning. Now, remember when I said that I never would have heard of Draconian without a certain other band? Well, my dive into Gothic Doom this year can all be traced back to my number 7, A Million Tears by Trees of Eternity. When I was thinking of tracks for this list, my first thought for Trees of Eternity was Gallows Bird. But when I was searching my main playlist for the song in question, I remembered that every time I heard A Million Tears, it was way better than I remembered. So I put it on, and suddenly I was crying. Damn, the feels are real here. Those slow rolling waves of sound and that soft, gentle vocals give a feeling of deep sorrow and pain that is all too real. Singer Aaliyah Starbridge died before the album was released, giving even more poignance to the song's themes. Few songs I've ever heard slide the knife through my heart so gently or so thoroughly. But what gets me the most are those high backing vocals that start around the 4-minute mark and continue through to the end of the song, upping that last chorus to new levels of sadness the likes of which few songs can ever match. I can say with ease that this is the most heart-wrenching song that I've heard this year. Or I could say that, if not for a song that we'll get to later. But in the meantime, I've got other tracks that I need to get over first, so let's get destructive. With my number 6, A Subtle Change, including the Forest of Transition and the Dissatisfaction Dance, by Rivers of Nihil. One metal extreme to another, Rivers of Nihil are one of the most technically proficient bands I've ever heard, and Subtle Change is up there with the best progressive metal tracks I've ever heard. It's got everything. Complex rhythms, check. Both clean and harsh vocals, check. Mind-blowing drums, check. Fucking saxophone, check. The only doubt when including this was whether it should be Where Owls Know My Name on this list instead. Both tracks are stunning, but Subtle Change has that glorious first guitar solo and equally brilliant keyboard solo just before, and beautiful juxtaposition between the gentle sections and the brutal ones. Then there's that sax solo and subsequent solos after. There's a lot of solos on this track. I guess that explains why I like it so much. The whole Where Owls Know My Name album is, while a rather acquired taste, also an outstanding masterpiece and one of the best metal albums I've ever heard. This just happens to be the best of an extraordinary bunch. Speaking of great albums, next up is a song from my most recent review, number 5, Entrancement by Lucid Planet. the scene. You've just had some 400-year-old shaman blow magic dust in your eyes, and you're currently having a fever dream in which a group of tribal Aussies are dancing around a fire in the middle of the desert. Entrancement is the song playing. It's hypnotic, it's mesmerising, it's wonderfully powerful, but even still, this was the hardest choice for me to make, because Lucid Planet 2 is just so good. Almost every song was in contention, but Entrancement has an X factor that I can't quite put my finger on. Maybe it's the keyboard, maybe it's the flute, maybe the vocal effects, most likely a bit of all of them, but regardless of what it is, the song feels so alive and wonderful, and scary as well. I can't imagine how you could not like this. I also want to make a point of applauding the keyboards on Lucid Planet 2, they are absolutely brilliant. I don't think I mentioned them enough in my original review. Now, before we get to the plot twist, and there is a plot twist, I have one last metal song to talk about, and if you recognise that rhythmic tapping in the background, you already know what the song is, and why it's so high on the list. Number 4, The Art of Dying, by Gojira. It actually took me a long time to give Gojira a chance. My bad, sorry. I'd known of their existence for nearly 2 years before finally giving in and listening to The Art of Dying. And what a monster song, holy hell! This is a metal masterpiece worthy of any list. Of course there's a great deal of raw power here, but the thing that draws me to this song so much is that drum pattern. God, it gets me every time. It's hard to believe the song's in 4/4 and the snare is so rhythmically discordant and the lyrics are so chaotic. This was by far the easiest song to choose on the list. It's both the best Gojira song I've ever heard and the first. While I love every song on Magma, The Art of Dying is just on another level. In particular, that killer outro riff and that rumbling bass line that leads so brilliantly into the inevitable fade out that rounds off this existential masterpiece. Now before we move on to the next song, we need a little backstory. I've been told since basically forever that the 70s were the best decade for music, which I've always disagreed with because the stuff that everyone pointed to was the stuff that I found to be rather insubstantial. I don't like classic rock or classic prog, surprisingly, but when it's that long ago, it's hard to know where to find the hidden gems. Well, I found them. Number 3, Yurasada Zarukoi by Yamasaki Hako. The final 3 artists on this list share many similarities, most obviously in their extraordinarily beautiful singing voices. Now, I'm not much of a crier, but this song cuts right through my soul in a way no other has managed to do ever. I have to actively fight not to cry every time I hear it, and that is not actually an exaggeration, seriously. Hako's voice has a unique misery to it that pulls you into the moment and keeps you there while slowly stripping you down to your base emotions. Then after pulling your weak, vulnerable self into the light, it makes it very clear that no, things are not going to get better. God, I love miserable music. This is true for all of Hako's music, but Yurasada Zarukoi is a step up from the rest. I can't say for sure, but it sounds like it was recorded in one take. It's so spontaneous and raw, just Hako's voice and an acoustic guitar. The pure simplicity of it is haunting. The way the guitar ebbs and flows to allow Hako's voice to permeate through your head and heart alike, and that chorus! Holy hell, it's pure perfect agony of the highest, most beautiful kind. The next song is a little bit more uplifting, if no less powerful, and represents the catalyst for my recent dive into the 70s Japanese blues that culminated in Yurusare Zarukoi and deep love for a genre I'd never given any thought to before hearing the masterpiece of an album this track shares its title with. Number 2, Miko by Sai Yoshiko. Now, if you were to ask me which of Yurusare Zarukoi and Miko is better, I would not be able to answer you. However, this was still an easy choice to make, because Sai Yoshiko has an overabundance of extraordinary songs for me to choose from. Miko may have gotten the nod from me for this list, but Yuki Onna, Taiji no Yume and Haru are all just as good, and I could go on with that list as well. So why Miko? Well, it was the song that sold me on listening to more of her stuff. Also, remember how I said how much I love effortless power? Yeah, there's more of that on Miko than I know how to deal with. This song is, in a word, classy. Both delicate and adventurous in equal measure, with a smooth power that, as I've mentioned, I adore. But the star of the show is Sai's voice, which might just be the best natural voice I've ever heard. God, is it beautiful. Perfectly balanced, both warm and gentle, but also mysterious and distant. It's kind of a shame that I've now listened to her entire discography. It's far too small for such an immense talent. Luckily, my number 1 has quite the huge discography. But before we get there, we have got some honourable mentions that nearly made this list. Firstly, Walking Dead by Pure Essence, a song that I didn't think I would love, but it turns out I'm a big fan of high-octane alt-rock. Well, I guess I should have seen that coming, really. Deadhead by the Devin Townsend Project, what a monster song this is. It misses out because it's the best of Devin's stuff that I've heard by quite a long way, although admittedly not a huge sample size there. Between the Atoms by Antimatter. Black Market Enlightenment is an unbelievable album. The main reason it's only an honourable mention is that no one song really sticks out to me as the best of the bunch. Ninth Wave by Inductee, one of the best progressive metal songs I've heard this year, but also several steps above everything else Inductee has done that I've heard. I'm gonna fuck this up. Glufradal by Continuum. I apologise for the butchery, I don't speak Icelandic, but what a stunningly hopeless track this is. Marvellous. Still Life by Mariana Samkina. I said it would be here. Well, it didn't quite make the cut in the end. Still tear-inducing there. Intro by Heavyweights the King. Thanks, Rick. Devonian Nascent by Ocean. This is just an excuse to listen to more of Jonas Rankser. Not that the rest of the Ocean stuff isn't great, mind you. And The Reason I Wanted to Die by Nakashima Mika as performed by Amazarashi. I've heard several versions of this song, but Amazarashi's version is head, shoulders, knees, and toes above the rest. Okay, that might be a little bit harsh. We'll go back to knees. And finally, a very special mention to Stephen Wilson's Personal Shopper. Although I find it to be rather mediocre by his standards, the remix competition he did for it created a great deal of unique and interesting music, as well as gave me a chance to take a look at how he works his magic from the inside out, which was both educational and extremely fun. But enough stalling, let's get on to the list topper, and this was an unbelievably easy choice, at least as far as which artist would be here. For a bit of perspective, Lucid Planet had 5 songs that I considered seriously for this list. This artist had nearer 40. Not since I first heard Porcupine Tree back in 2013 have I been so obsessed with an artist's work, which of course made choosing just one song unbelievably hard. So hard, in fact, that I cheated and chose a song that I first heard at Christmas 2019. My list, my rules, fuck off. My number one song of the year, Fukuro by Kokia. I've been an anime fan for almost as long as I've been obsessed with music, and for all that time I've looked for that one anime artist that I could fall in love with and listen to forever. It took 6 years and a few near misses, but I found it. However, it's not Kokia's work on anime, most notably with the Ancient Magus Bride, or her work on game soundtracks such as Dark Souls 3, through which I found her, but the old reliable YouTube algorithm. First, it brought me to Choa Oto, that looking back really should have made last year's top 10, and then to Fukuro. I've been learning how to play Fukuro for what seems like forever now, slowly chipping away at each section week by week. The only thing that moves me like a 20-minute epic journey is a gentle, melancholic ballad full of intrigue and mystery, and no one has done that better or in a more diverse way than Kokia. Fukuro may have been the song that I chose, but anything off of Trip Trip, Tokyo Mermaid, or Real World could have made the list had I chose to learn a song from any of those albums instead. Although I am very happy with my choice. Fukuro is a wistful wander around the D-Dorian mode, managing to sound cohesive without sounding repetitive by constantly changing chords just a little bit each time, while Kokia coos a curious greeting in one of her many unique voices, all of which I find fascinating. While she may not have the natural talent of Sai or Hako, Kokia has an extraordinary amount of dedication and skill. She can do it all, from precise, perfect pop singing to the most primal wailing cry, and all with a passion and bravado that leaves you stunned and in awe. But I could go on about this for ages, and I think you get the point. Kokia is amazing, go listen to her stuff. And that's the list. These last 2 years have done no end of good for my music interests, but there's always more out there, and it can be very hard to find, so I hope this video has helped you to find new music for you to fall in love with too. Until next time, whenever that may be, goodbye.